I'm glad that I had 20 years of experience of shutting my brain off and dealing with it to be able to turn that light switch off. I look at it as, those switches aren't natural when we first get into this career. You'll see kids that, what do I do when they have their hands up in the air and brand new calls, But after 20 years or so, you figure it out and you make this thing just a fluid switch, and the emotional part shuts down and the let's go to work turns on. Let's just get these kids triaged. Let's figure this out. Let's go plug holes and take people to the hospital. And they told me that I had to go to this debriefing. And like halfway through it, I literally looked across the table and I went, why the F is my face leaking? And I think that my response to that put me just right back into sympathetic. I was like, nope, we're not doing it.
Hello and welcome to the Minds in the Frontline Podcast. This episode takes us deep inside the unseen reality of what it means to flip the switch during a crisis and what happens when it won't flip back. Today's guest is Justin Templeton, a seasoned firefighter, paramedic, and company officer who responded to the Oxford High School shooting in Oakland County, Michigan in 2021. He openly discusses the mental toll of that day, the importance of peer support, and the long path to post-traumatic growth. Together, we explore themes of resilience, leadership, memory gaps, and how first responders can genuinely care for themselves and each other. Minds in the Frontline is presented by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program, providing 24/7 mental health and crisis support for Michigan's first responders and their families. For more details about FST5, including free access to resources and ways to connect, please check out the episode description and follow us on social media. Thank you and enjoy the show. Good morning, Justin. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Really well. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you do it.
So my name is Justin Templeton. I'm a firefighter paramedic with the Oxford Fire Department. I've been there for 19 years. I bounced around for about 5 before that. So I've been in the service for somewhere around 23 years. During that time, I spent a lot of time educating. I'm the program director for the North Oakland Training Group. I ran fire academies, teach all over the state. I'm a training coordinator with the Bureau of Fire Services. I'm a paramedic IC. I've kind of been around. I own a building company, so on every day that I have off, like every firefighter, I fill that time driving nails. And husband, a father. I've got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old that keep me busy in the moments that I have when I'm not at work. And if you ask my wife, there wouldn't be very many moments. But that's kind of the me in a nutshell.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, you just basically gave the blueprint of so many first responders. They do a lot already on the job just with the normal job description. And then you take on the extra roles of training guy or quality improvement or anything. And you can fill those into any of the 5 first responder categories. And then we end up getting side jobs because we can and we need it. And we want to raise a family and give them what they need. And next thing you know, we're doing so much, sometimes it makes it stressful for everybody. So I think part of this conversation is recognizing that we're going to talk about something that was pretty crazy, impactful.
For sure.
And it doesn't need to be that to really derail you when your life is already kind of in a stressful lot going on.
I feel like we kind of get used to that, and then we feed into it. If normal operating procedure is stress, let's just make sure that we live there, So
right.
that's
it feels odd when you're not in there.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable space. You slow down and you don't know what to do with your hands.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and then you don't get to control when the tones drop or why.
That's true.
Right. So you do a lot. What motivated you to become a first responder?
So I would love to sit here and give everybody the I always wanted to help people spiel that everybody gives, but the reality of it is I grew up in a small town where you knew what everybody did. Things were very reachable, obtainable jobs. People were teachers. They worked at the DPW. A good city pension was a thing that people talked about. My dad was a teacher. My mom sold furniture, was an interior designer. I never knew a fireman. I grew up in a town that has a volunteer fire service. And strangely enough, I was at a party. And I was complaining that my dad was telling me that I should have went to college and I need to figure this out. And I was a junior. And there was a guy standing there and he goes, well, you can come take my EMT class. It's $300, which dates myself plenty, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I said to him, what's an EMT? I mean, that's how far removed I was. And then obviously I took this class because I thought it would get my dad off my back. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. I can drive with flashy lights on and go fast. And obviously in an EMT class, there's a ton of firefighters. And they were like, well, you can also go to a fire academy free. But I won't lie. Like I got the bug. I fell in love with it, and I still love the job today. Every part of it. I still like treating patients, even. And I know that's an unpopular thing in paramedic firefighters, but I still do. So the last 23 years flew by.
I feel like you and I looked a lot less tired the first time we met, because we were like 22, 23-year-old kids, probably. Eh?
Yeah, and I didn't have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and just scope creep of 3 jobs, 4 jobs, whatever it is. I lose track.
Yeah,
so I'm sure
that mission creep really does creep up on.
Yeah, and we're old. There's that in fireman years.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Let's get into kind of why we're here and why we're talking here today. Oxford, obviously, in the news a lot. Unfortunately, a school shooting there. And do you want to go into that a little bit and talk about your role was that day, your perspective, and kind of how it all unfolded?
Yeah, so like I said, I was a newly promoted officer, so some of that stuff is important to take in. And at the time, I was sitting there staring at it, and I had a brand new crew, very young go-getter guys that are just rock stars, but new paramedics. I just got assigned back out to Station 2, where I was as a senior fireman. So we had sergeants at the time. They just relabeled them as lieutenants now. New to that, got married just before this, had a 6-month-old, and we're sitting at Station 2 talking about how one of the other guys was really doing well, but needed to get some bad calls under his belt to see how he really worked. And we got into this conversation, and shortly after that, we were asked to respond to shots in the area of the school, and that was, you have to take the community into consideration when you have this conversation, right? Like, shots in the area of a school, it's November, it's northern Oakland County. Who knows what's really going on here?
Yeah, so I think it's important for you to point out that northern Oakland County has a lot of very Michigan hunter-type people. Having shots in the county, this could be target practice, could be hunting, could be 1,000 things, right?
100%. Yeah. Right? And we get asked to stage up near the school, and when we get there, my rescue actually got stripped off we started getting reports of off-site people that were shot. So now our mindset kind of changed, or at least mine did, right? And that's so a thing that's important to kind of throw out there too is this is 100% just my view, right? Like, I work for the Oxford Fire Department, but this is not the view of the fire department. This is not the view of me as an educator or for the state of Michigan or any of those other things. This is just me as Justin Templeton sitting here talking. So just keep that kind of in mind. I'm not giving a dissertation of my position as a lieutenant for the fire department, So, but we started getting these reports, and my mindset was that we maybe had like a drive-by shooter, somebody who was mobile, because they were in a lot of different places, and that was my thought. And I used to work in places that had that kind of regularly for private EMS and other things over the years. So we stripped off for the first confirmed patient and went and treated a young man that was shot through the leg. And at this time, we kind of realized what was happening, but we still hadn't had any confirmed area where people were at or any kind of casualty collection or anything. And then we were informed of that, and we responded to try to triage. There were other rescues en route. The command staff that was on that day, my captain did an amazing job of moving people. We had a lot of things moving, a lot of assets and resources moving towards the scene to try to treat people and kind of stage this thing out, because there's a lot of kids. There's almost 1,000 kids in the school. It's a very large school, and we have no idea what's going on. So my viewpoint of it at this point was we need to get there and triage. We need to get there and figure this out, start working through the problem, because I'm not hearing that happening yet, because we're kind of getting pulled off by these tertiary events that initially we thought was something else. Mm-hmm. So we raced there in our rescue after making sure that this kid was stabilized and that he was transported to the hospital by family and friends, because he was okay, And the reports that were coming in were that there was a lot of people that were not okay, and we have limited resources, right? So we wanted to make sure those were pushed in a direction where we could solve those problems. We got to the school. We were directed to a hallway, and it became very different when we walked in. I was kind of tasked with assisting a couple guys that had responded directly to the school, and I remember staring at them trying to figure out, like, how did you beat us here? And later I found out that they responded to a very different call, right? Like, they responded to a phone call from their kids, which kind of weighs into how much different this can be. Like, every scenario can be depending on who you are, where you live, all these things. And then I kind of took over triaging people in that hallway. So I triaged 4 people, and unfortunately a couple of them succumbed to their injuries. And I had planned on taking the 2 most critically injured that were still had pulses and taking them to the hospital. And then at that time when I pulled up to the school, there was nobody there. So I was just like, I'm going to take everybody I can see. We're going to figure this out. When I turned around, there was another stretcher, which we'll get into later about blank spots in our minds, right? But there was another stretcher, and I was told that this other kid was going to go with that. So I took the worst one, and I took a young lady to the hospital, and she made this a success story for me, right? Like I know that's 100% for her, but what she survived, and she's just an amazing human being and just does a lot of stuff for mental health and community, and she wants to get into physical therapy, and like it's just an amazing person and speaker, and I was there to witness her survival, like that's really been my role in this, was witnessing it. And that was, after that we returned because this event's still unfolding and you have no idea how many people are here. And we got back into staging, and pretty much my job after that was I got asked to go down the line of ambulances and check in on all the guys that had transported people and ask them kind of age, injury, that type of thing of who we transported, to create a list for the command staff that had then kind of made a unified command post inside the school, and get them some information, because it did actually was demobilized at that point. We didn't have any more patients to transport. After that, I returned back to the station, and then because the captain stayed at the scene, I was in charge of. I took it upon myself to wash out, get the trucks cleaned, back and serviced, make sure that we had coverage for everybody else, swap out crews, check on people, meet with the peer support teams that in my mind were there for the crews, excluding myself. That's the way that I looked at it at that moment, and kind of washed and did the laundry and figured it out and put people back on trucks, and eventually went home. Luckily for us, our command staff had a bunch of people come in, and they called in everybody else, and they washed the whole crews out. They actually sent people home. So that day technically ended for me somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning, after I decided to finally take their less than suggestive suggestions to call it good and go home. So that was kind of my role in that day, the actual day. Yeah, that's where I was that day.
So there's a lot there to break down. So we'll take it one piece at a time. So arriving at a situation like that, going into a command mode in a lot of ways, being a company officer and providing treatment, there's a lot going on there. And we train for that, right? Mm-hmm. But what was it actually like in a real life situation, not a scenario, to focus on the treatment with the emotional reality and the chaos around you? What I'm trying to get at is we train for one thing, and we can't really institute those levels of details. And so I'd like to hear what it was really like in that situation for you.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that play into here. Our initial response was for something that wasn't happening, right? Like it was for shooting in the area and then other things. So some of those things, in my mind, changed what we were going to. We had all these ideas that we'd trained on about all these things, and luckily for us, there was a lot of things in place. We'd labeled school doors and other things. We'd been in the school a million times. We've dry ran this thing. But it doesn't play out the way that you dry run it. It really doesn't. There's not magically this collection area of people. When I walked into that hallway, to be completely honest, I thought that the police department, the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, which our partners over there, did an amazing job mitigating this hazard right off the bat and making sure that everybody else went home safe that day. I mean, I put that in their hands. They had this person detained in no time. They did a great job with it, in my opinion. But when I walked into this hallway and I turned right, there's all these people laying in a very short hallway. Because of that training, I believed this to be a casualty collection point. So in my mind, because the shape of the school's gigantic, and you can only see so far down each hallway before they break and turn, every one of these hallways was the same. So there was just more of this around the corner, and we needed to manage this so that we could continue to manage all these other spaces, So it was really different. But honestly, like in the moment, and this caused problems later, and we'll get into that, but like I'm glad that I had 20 years of experience of shutting my brain off and dealing with it to be able to turn that light switch off. I look at it as, those switches aren't natural. When we first get into this career, you'll see kids that, what do I do when they have their hands up in the air and brand new calls, But after 20 years or so, you figure it out and you make this thing just a fluid switch, and the emotional part shuts down and the let's go to work turns on. And, in my opinion, that's what we did. Everybody in that moment was able to do that. Especially I can speak for myself, you know what I mean? Like to me it was, okay, let's just get these kids triaged. Let's figure this out. Let's go plug holes and take people to the hospital in that moment, right? And I'm not saying that to try to sound like some tough
No,
guy because
if
it doesn't last that way. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
No, but that's important to talk about because we all do have the switch. You know what I mean? And you learn how to flip the switch. That switch is what protects us in that moment to get through whatever we're trying to get to, right? A lot of times, once you turn that switch off is when all this stuff really starts to hit you.
Yeah.
You know, where you allow that stuff to kind of flow in. And so you talked about after we got back to the station, you said the peer team showed up for everyone but you.
They're there for everybody else.
Yeah, which is a normal thing as well. But kind of talk to us a little bit about that debriefing and why that debriefing was so important after that major incident like that.
So knowing that there were steps put in place to me was important because I was still in this mode where my light switch was still switched. So even though I didn't have patients to take care of, I had a crew to take care of, and that was my thought process on it. There was residents, there were citizens, there was people that are going to call for a stub toe for their smoke detector going off, and we still have to manage these things, right? The light switches off, and that's all I cared about in that time. But I will tell you, I think the past sets us up for things and teases us up in a good way. Our chief had all this stuff with the captain that was running the command structure that day, kind of set up at the station when I pulled back in. So like I had absolutely nothing to do with any of this peer, and that was a hole in my training. Like I will tell you that I had never winked at this side of it. You want to pull hoses, you want to start IVs, you want to teach ACLS, I'm your guy. But I had never even nodded at the other side of it. So just having somebody that knew what to do with things that I don't know how to do was huge to me at that point. And walking in, for me, like, I've been around a little bit, right? Like I travel around teaching, I talk to people, and I walked in and there was guys that I knew from all over the place sitting there. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, were you guys on the call? Because we called resources from everywhere, right? Like we mobilized every ambulance that had a radio in it pretty much because we have no idea what we got going on here. And rightfully so, But once I figured out that's what it was, I was like, okay, these guys got a chance because they actually have firemen and EMS that are going to talk to them. It's not, I don't mean to, I'm not going to downplay any of these people because I think they're all great and they have their place, but it's not, it's not doctors. It's not chaplains that we've never met. It's not stuff. It's us, right? And that, just seeing that and knowing that that was there, and it was very non-intrusive. Like I have to give that, like they were just hanging out. Like, hey man, you all right? You need a cup of coffee? At least that's what I got out of it because I was busy, right? Like I was like, nope, the guys are over there. I'm fine. I got stuff to do, right? So like the immediate response of it was just kind of nice to have somebody that honestly like I knew and could trust just there.
If I may, real quick.
Yes, sir.
Mike, you're a resident expert with the peer support teams and these types of debriefings. Is that a common reaction from a good, let's say, firehouse leader, company officer person that maybe isn't recognizing this is such an objectively needed process to have after a big incident? Are these revelations something common you see?
I think so. I think it's normally after these big incidents like that, firemen just want to be around firemen. They don't want the outsiders there. It's that protective cocoon we kind of build amongst ourselves. We all have it. You have it with your crew, you have it with your department, but I think for a larger extent, we have it with other firefighters. And when you can have them come in and do exactly what you talked about, they're not shoving it down your throat. They're just sitting there talking and going, hey, I'm here if you want to have a conversation. Or we realize that it takes some time to flip that switch off. Like you don't just come back to the station and all of a sudden you're back to what you need to be doing. You got to give time to people to come back to that safe area and shut it down. Once they shut it down, they're going to start having emotional responses, and then we can go talk about those. But until they have that, you're not going to get anywhere with anybody until they're ready to talk.
And is it maybe sometimes when we get called back to the training room, is where I'm imagining it was the training
exactly
room,
where
right?
it was, right?
And so when we get called in there, we're so used to getting in there, you sit down, you listen, right? And so there's like this classroom feel sometimes where, Mike, is the idea to break that off, is to not make it feel like...
Absolutely. I think the important part when you go out and do these things is you let whoever you're talking to drive the bus on it.
Yeah.
Where do you feel comfortable talking? Do you want to sit around the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and we can just do that?
Yeah.
Let them tell you where they want to talk. It's, you go into the training room or they set up a circle somewhere and it's not natural. It's not normal, right? Our natural normal is doing what we're doing right now. Got a cup of coffee, we're sitting at the table and we're talking. I've done them around pickup trucks in the bay. I've done them in TV rooms, kitchen tables. And it's like, that's the important part, is let the people tell you what they want. Don't tell them what they need. Let them kind of have a say in this, because they just went to something they didn't have control over.
Right.
Let them come back to the station. Let them talk to you and tell you, okay, this is where we want to do it. Because it seems that's when you get the best outcomes, is when you talk to people like that and you give them the option. You let them come to you almost.
And the training room, if I was in charge, I would have set it up in the training room too, because that's what we think
Well, it's
of.
the space, right?
Right. And I would never think that somebody's trying to do it because we're going to do it in my training room. But looking back, we always Monday morning quarterback these things. Do you think, like, maybe if you had to do this again, we're like maybe looking at the most comfortable social situation for any one of them? Like, I'm such a vibe person and a set and setting type person that I'm more comfortable BSing at a table rather than the administrative training room, right?
Well,
even though they're there to love me.
We talk about, just right after incidents, like not devaluing the tailboard. Or if somebody wants to like sit on the truck, like just sitting back there with them, just having a conversation, trying to figure out the truth of an incident and figuring it out. So I do think setting plays into it. And you brought up something that's pretty interesting, because in education we always talk about recency and primacy or primacy, right? Like the two ways that you're going to do something. And those are really, really important when you talk about the light switch, right? So like if we flip that brain off and we go back into animal mode, like if we bring out Captain Mattern or Lieutenant Templeton or any of us, right? Like we bring that person out and put them in the front, and we put dad and husband and normal provider in the back. We rely super heavily on recency and primacy, right? Like we're going to do it the last way that we did it, or we're going to do it the way that we were taught. And that is situational, right? So like if you put me in that room, I'm going to think that I'm there to get taught something. It's something that I've never thought about, but you bring up an amazing point. I also wonder, like, a lot of fire departments can be a little nichey and little get out of my kitchen table, right? Like, so like, I don't know how much I want in this exact moment when I came back.
Yeah.
Like, where's the sweet spot? Is it the tailboard? Because sometimes maybe I just want to hang out with the guys around the kitchen table for a minute. That's my space.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important. I mean, it just depends. It's really based on every crew, every department, every whatever.
The building even.
That's what I mean. It's like if we came in and said every time we're going to go sit around the kitchen table, you're going to get that type of reaction from some crew, right?
For sure.
That's why, after these situations, it's you tell me where do you want to do it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Hit the nail on the head there.
That's what's important, is giving them the option.
As much as I respected the idea of bringing in new crews and washing us and sending us home, and I still think it's the right idea. Like, I think that they were right. Like, we weren't going home.
Right.
Like, even after you finally had to administratively be like, you're going home, right? Like, this is no longer a suggestion. We went and sat in a garage together. Like we're not going home. Like, my wife's not a huge fan of Lieutenant Templeton, and that's the only person that I could bring home. I'm not that person yet. I'm going to go hang out with my boys, So
there's a lot of value to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
100%.
What people have to realize is there's kind of two different peer supports, right?
Yeah.
There's one where the actual peer support team shows up, has the conversation, we work through some things, right? But we realize when we leave, we helped start a conversation that's probably going to continue once we leave. Everybody does peer support. So we do the official peer support, but like you talked about, they can come in, they talk to you, we do the debrief, we do all that stuff. Just the fact where you guys are now hanging out together, out in the garage, out in the bay, wherever it might be, you're still talking about things, right?
Oh, for sure.
And that's the goal of all of this. The fact that you don't necessarily have to go home, because there's a lot of value in staying at that station or around the kitchen table where the conversations are continuing. And in all reality, those conversations are what can help somebody process what just happened. But some people do want to go home. Some people want to go hug their kids, and it's so individualized that each person, you can't do a cookie cutter approach to how you handle these situations. It's what's best for the individual. If somebody wants to go home and be with the kids, go home and be with the kids. You want to hang around at the station? Cool. We'll let you hang around. You don't have to go on any runs, obviously, but you had crews come in, which is awesome because it just gave you guys time to just be a crew together.
Yeah, and honestly, it's important to even say, the community is a huge thing, right? Like, we're not a huge city department. So during this time period, this call came in, and 99.9% of our staff came back to it. Then we don't have to, right? Like, we not all of us live there. I live in a different community, but the entirety of the department was at our station. Like I came back and I'm like, oh, it's the manpower that we always wanted, right? So, but yeah, so like there was a lot of people to move around and manage and figure those things out. But the importance of just having a conversation, like even, I won't lie, I pretty much didn't talk to the guys, right? Like I was like, I got stuff to do. I'm going to go over here. But like, oh, they're here. So that is a box that I'm going to have to look into at some point. Like that is a thing. Like even just having it there was like, oh, all right, we're going to have to do that at some point, right? Like so.
Yeah, so do you think you were experiencing some avoidance in those situations?
I don't even know what to call it avoidance. Like I actually view it kind of, and I'm a very black and white kind of to my own fault at some point, like put things in boxes. I'm not sure that the person that was there that day was avoiding it, but I'm not sure that person was I'm not like that. I had a task and that I built a character to deal with the task. And I'm not sure that character was avoiding it, but my person as a whole more than likely was, right? Like I very much so grew up in that if you stepped in feelings, you brushed them off and made sure that you didn't have them again. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Then you took a profession that perpetuated it.
Oh, and then I perpetuated it, right? Like so
with a badge of honor almost. Oh, a false badge of courage, right?
Yeah. I'm so tough that I don't have feelings, right? Like, so
yeah.
That didn't come to any dismay in my personal life ever.
Well, let's get to that part. I want to get to coming down from this incident because I think it's important to point out that, and Mike, nobody can probably say this more than anybody else in the room, is that just because you have an incident debriefing doesn't mean everybody's cool.
No.
And sometimes it doesn't hit you right away, right? So how long did it take for your body and your mind to kind of come down from the sympathetic response from that day? Because I got to imagine just because you went to sleep eventually, your mind didn't stop, right?
Yeah, and that's a huge thing so one of the things that's important even to me to notice about first responders is sympathetic response for us doesn't look the same. It's not screaming and crying and running away, right? Like it's let's calm down. My heart rate goes down. You know, we go towards the problem, and I'm going to be a consummate problem solver. Everything's math. Everything's a rhythm. Everything's let's figure it out. So that's a sympathetic response, right? Like our ability to treat patients and to work in these environments is sympathetic. So I went home very much so still in that, you know, and I know that I understand that SISM teams and peer support, like we kind of look for how long it takes you to come out of that. And like it shows problems if it's longer, like we want that to occur in a certain time period as I understand it. I think 2 or 3 days later, we went to one in kind of the classroom where we had to like talk about the incident. And then they kind of told me that I had to go to this other one, this debriefing. And I sat there and I was sitting at a table, and just to give you some insight about like the person that I very much so was walking into this, I sat there and I started off the conversation very kind of like I did on this, like, oh, we responded to this call, you know, like, because that's what I thought we were trying to do, like tactical debrief. That's in my wheelhouse, you know. And like halfway through it, I literally looked across the table and I went, why the F is my face leaking? And I couldn't figure out like what this thing was happening. And I'm like, I don't do this. Why is my face leaking? So like that was like, and I think that my response to that like put me just right back into sympathetic. I was like, nope, we're not doing it. And I handled it. And I was like, nope, locking that back up, you know. I got to go back into company officer mode. So I did that. And for some reason, my brain, I wasn't sure if this was a success. And I know that sounds terrible, but like a positive or a negative story for me yet. So like 30 some odd days later, Kylie, the girl that I transported, was released from the hospital and she could walk. And that for some reason allowed me to kind of demobilize. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why my brain attached that to it. It might be because when I picked her up initially, she told me when I picked her up off the ground that now I can't feel my legs. So I probably held some like deep-rooted guilt of paralyzing this poor child that was shot. She had a bad enough day, you know. Mm-hmm. And then for whatever reason, almost 36 days later, my brain kind of demobilized. And I went home, I won't say as me, right? Because I was like the me that was there before was changed. And if you don't flip that switch, it doesn't go back easy after a long time. Like it's fine if you're sitting there and you're monitoring it and you're lubricating it and everything's working well and you're actually balancing. About 30 some odd days is a long time. The worst part of that is the parallels that occur in 35 days, right? Like your personal life is going down a track and they have a reality. it doesn't matter that your reality is true also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you miss things, you don't do things. You're not the person that you thought you were for 30 some odd days, and the person that they want to come home doesn't come home. So that definitely caused some things that needed to be dealt with, you know, but an extremely long time. Like it's the longest 30 days of my life, and I didn't, but in it, a blink of an eye, absolute blink of an eye.
Right. So let me ask you about that. Now you say it took you that long. How did you know you were coming down then? Is it looking back at 40, 50 days? Or is it like, did you know, like, now my body's, oh my gosh, did you recognize in the moment?
So
What
in
did
the
it feel
moment
like?
I didn't, right?
Okay.
So I think that part of it was there, but a lot of it to me was, just to be candid, like it created some relationship issues in a new marriage. And that's why I kind of brought that up. New marriage, new baby. What I was really saying there was, you know, it's the dream for all of us, you know, brand new marriage, brand new baby, brand new crew, brand new everything. It's fantastic. Well, flip the switch and turn the Facebook off. What that really is I have no idea how to be a father. I have no idea how to be a husband. I have no idea how to deal with a crew, you know. I'm new. That's what that really is, right? So we can have both sides of that same coin in those parallel realities. But really it took my wife. I couldn't figure out like why she was not really overly happy with me. And she told me like, I've had to deal with this other person, and she didn't articulate it this way, but I kind of took it as like an imposter walked through the door for a really long time. And that's those different cloaks, those different personalities that we put on. We build a character to do this job, but we're not supposed to live in it, right? Like we're supposed to, like I like my hour drive home because I take off that cloak.
Once you found out she was going to be okay, the call was over. Like you
Yeah.
were still living in that call until there was one way or the other.
Yep.
And-
I didn't have resolution, right? Like, so
Yes.
you can't put a period at the end of a sentence when there isn't one.
Yeah, your switch was about halfway off because until you found out one way or the other, and we hear a lot from dispatchers, you know, who have been on because they don't necessarily get closure with anything, right? You talked about that, and you said the second you heard she was okay, it was like a flip, right?
Yeah.
And that was it. Like now you can shut down the engines. She's okay. Your mission is completed.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And that's normal. A lot of times during these situations, and when we talk about them, we don't have a continuous timeline. There's gaps within whatever situation you were at, and that's just the nature of shutting that mind off, doing what we need to do. And I know you've talked about how your brain created gaps within this situation as well, and with those gaps, you don't necessarily get to process the trauma fully. Kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I recognize this because during that 30-some-odd day time period, I kept myself busy, A, because I thought I was doing the right thing, but probably B, to make sure that I didn't have emotional responses to this thing, right? Let's just be honest with each other. But we worked through this process, and we started debriefing on this call. And right after the call, I wrote down exactly what I did the way that I remembered it, right? And I wanted to keep this. I just kept writing. I like to keep a log of it in case something got blurry, you know, along the line. And when we debriefed on the call, I'm listening to other people's stories. And during this time period, I'm like, wait a minute. If that was your story, how did this work out, right? So we did a walkthrough at the school. And this is actually the first time that I recognized this. I'm a very, like I talked about, I'm a pretty OCD guy, right? I might actually have CDO. It's where you organize the letters in OCD.
I like that.
But in high stress scenarios, like zero visibility structure, any of those things, I count steps. I know where I'm at. And in my brain, when I wrote this down the night before, I had walked through a door, I'd taken X amount of steps to the right, I'd met with a person, I'd triaged a couple of kids, I'd talked to another kid, and there was another person down the hallway. I'd walked over to this other person and unfortunately decided that she was unsalvageable and made that decision, right? When I walked through the school, the distance in the hallway stretched out like a bad 80s movie, right? Like it just was like, and then I watched the video of what actually occurred that day, and I never went there. But I knew for a fact that I did. So what I have now is a gap in where I'm questioning my own memory, which is really all you have in these scenarios. Like I did X and that's why we're okay and everything's fine, right? Like we did this thing together. My crew did this. They're awesome. They're rock stars. They did all the things that they're supposed to do and they took care of people. And then I started thinking too much, which is what I do. So I applied that across to all of our other providers, and like the doubt that it creates without a timeline. And I don't know about you, but like we're not always super consummate positivity people in this service, right? So when there's gaps, because now I have a moment that I don't know what was in it. I knew that there was something in it, and I just pulled that piece out and threw it away. It wasn't there. So you start filling those things with garbage. Doubt. What did we do? What if? We play the what if game, Luckily for me, I spent the first 20 years of my career, 15 years of my career playing the what if game, and I got ahead of that, so I wasn't a player in that. But recognizing that in other people, what if I wouldn't have transported this person? Then I could have triaged. Maybe this other thing would have happened. One of the best things about like a SISM timeline or peer support or any of these things where we break them down and we do those AARs on the tailboard and we do them professionally is creating a real timeline of what you knew when you were where you were. Because if I give you the whole picture, you're going to do exactly what the news media does. I'm going to find a gap in it, and I'm going to say, look, they knew all this huge information and they did this thing, right? And I'm not saying these guys did an amazing job. They didn't do anything wrong that day. They took care of human beings, and I can't be more proud of the crew that I worked with. But it inserts doubt if you can't insert yourself on a linear timeline. Like, I mean, a very visible, this is what I knew when I made this decision. This decision brought us to here. Because if we punch holes in this thing, I'm telling you, we're consummate pessimists, and it's terrible, and I'd love that for that to change in the fire service. And I think that that's one of those things that we can try to work on. But, we badger ourselves in the hall, and we're not going to sit there, and I'm not going to tell you sweet nothings. You know what I mean? I'm going to be horrible to you before we eat dinner. You know what I mean? Like, it's just what we do as firemen. But leaving those gaps allows people to fill them. And what we do when we fill them is we find whatever hot garbage is worst case scenario, and we just pump it into there. And then that stuff sets up like concrete, and it's harder to get out, So fleshing that out right off the bat is so insanely important. And in stages, right? Like, so even from like an AAR point of view, like I'm a tactical guy. Let's go sit on the tailboard and figure it out. Then in 2 days, let's really flesh this thing out and draw it up on the board and get some good information out there. But I think that was why so many of the guys would, and why I was part of the reason why I was so encompassed in this thing was every day, all day long, we just retold the story to each other. We just sat in the house. We came in for 24 hours. And then when we were off duty, I came in. We talked about it. We just said the same things. What these guys are really trying to do, they're not telling you anything. They're asking you a question. Mm-hmm. What really happened? Tell me that this is right. Mm-hmm. Tell me I did the right thing while I was in this moment. They're not telling you a story. They're asking for permission, right? Like they're asking you to validate the way that they feel. And it's true, right? Like, because if not, I have to fill these gaps with hot garbage. And that's just what we're going to do. It's how we're built.
And so let me ask you this. What role do you think teams like Mike's and other peer support teams play in helping our providers through that of maybe not filling it with bad stuff, for lack of a better term?
So having these guys that are trained the same way as us gives them validity, right? Like we can actually trust the conversation. That's a huge thing. And I think that even though my guys trust me, I wasn't equipped, right? Like, so I spent the first couple decades of my career making sure we didn't have this, and those guys knew that personality. So me walking up to have a conversation with you about your feelings is a huge, huge mistake that I made in the first 15 years of my career. I made it to where that was impossible. People are not going to come to me with that problem. They're not going to come to me and talk to me about their marital issues, right? Like this was not the character that I had built, and that's a massive trust issue, right? Like, and it didn't matter until now, but like these guys aren't going to come have that conversation with me. The other thing is too, like even though I am not that guy or was not that guy, I'm also part of the crew, and I believe in them, and they know that. So their trust for me to tell them that they did something wrong in this scenario is probably not the greatest, right? Like, of course he was part of the crew. Of course he's going to say we did the right thing. So having a little outside perspective of somebody saying, look, this is the information that you had when you made this decision. Because we have great providers, right? Like that's the God's honest truth about it, right? Like we have phenomenal EMS and fire providers in Oxford. And they did phenomenal work. And now they're beating themselves to death for it until somebody tells them that the truth is the truth. And that's what you knew at the time and you did the right thing, right? Like or just hearing the story again, right? So sometimes just being there and not being me, right, is an incredibly important piece of this, right?
I think in a lot of ways you've answered this next question, but I want to get into any possible shift in mental health perspective of your own, right? So how did this incident change your views on mental health in the fire service, but also all first responders, right? And also in those around you? I think you've made it clear that it's obviously become much more of something you shouldn't avoid and something that is you need to be proactive about, but also how are you seeing it interact with the people that also went through this situation around you?
You know, so the interactions that I think the crew has with me and that I have with them were closer. You know, it was obviously a trauma bonding experience. Like you couldn't pry us apart with a Halligan if you needed to. But if I'm really honest with myself, like I wish that I could go back and create conversation where I was the person that they could have those conversations with. Like there is, like mental health is part of this game, even if it's just from the shifts that we work. You know, there's a reason why when you look at us statistically, our divorce rates are through the roof, alcoholism, all the substance abuse problems, everything that you can look at. Not looking at that or even nodding towards it is something that I think moving forward we have to do, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I still love what everybody will call the toxic masculinity of the fire service. Right? Like we need it, right? Like we have to have those parts to be able to get through. I'm still not going to cry on your shoulder, you know what I mean? Like, but really being there for people, and I'm not just in a strategy and tactics kind of way. Like we have to do that. And if you want to know people, especially if you look at being a company officer as somebody that guides or molds or educates their people, we spend countless hours talking about, you know, UACs and secondary air problems and other things. Well, what happens when you're getting divorced for the third time? Or what happens when you're having these problems? Like, you're going to spend a third of your life with these guys. Let's actually have some real conversation, or at least hold some space for it. You know, it is important. There's no reason to have this kind of collateral damage around us just because we're doing something cool, you know. So,
you know, one thing, Mike, I think I've noticed, and I'd like to get your take on this, is some people think the peer support, I don't want to call it trend, but the wave of peer support is almost like, we got to be more open and lovey. And it's not that. It's not that. It's not changing anything about what we like about the alpha dogs and first responders and all that stuff. It feels like just being more honest about the fact that some people go through some stuff sometimes.
They call it peer support for a reason.
Right.
The good peer supporters will talk to people as peers. Just how we're going to sit around the kitchen table, right? Listen, I'm huge into mental health, peer support, but I'll also be one of the first guys to pull a joke on somebody or bust their chops or whatever. It doesn't take away that. All it does is it gives us an opportunity to talk to each other how we normally talk to each other and make it okay to shut the switch off from time to time, right? It makes it okay to just talk to them about things. When I sit down and talk to somebody like you talked about a divorce, we're having a conversation. I'm not doing we're giving hugs and all this other stuff. You're doing exactly what we just talked about today. You're validating their feelings. You're talking to them maybe about your own journey through it and kind of helping them get through whatever they're getting through. It's no different than anything else we do in the fire service. It doesn't take away what we do in the fire service or in the first responder community, how we talk to each other. It's
not a personality shift.
It's not a personality shift. The guys on my crew have a joke. Like if I'm wearing my hat forwards, I'm captain. If I turn my hat around, that's my peer support hat, right? I'm the same person. It's just how are we having this conversation, right? And it doesn't have to change anything about you personally. And we're not trying to soften anything up. It's just let's talk as peers that we should have been doing a long time ago.
It's actually just being a good friend.
Right.
That's it.
Honest.
I mean, exactly what you just said. It's taking care of each other as humans, not as anything else other than that. It's being a good friend. It's being a support system, which, listen, if one of us fell through a floor, the entire department would move hell to come get you, right? It's no different. It's an off-duty falling through the floor. It's an emotional falling through the floor. So why does it stop once our shift stops, right? You have to kind of approach it in the same way. You know what I mean? If you're going to walk the walk, you got to talk the talk when it comes to having each other's back and support and things like that. But it doesn't have to soften who you are.
Right.
Like I've known a lot of peer supporters who can bust chops with the best of them.
Well, honestly, your crew operates better when they're whole.
Yes.
Right? Like we've all had guys that are, like you said, I love the analogy of going through the floor. Like rock bottom could be the basement, or it can be rock bottom, right? Like these things are going to occur to all of us at some point in our career. We all have losses. We all have things. And even if you have to look at it that way because you can't grasp the idea of just being decent to a fellow human, it is about crew integrity. It is about moving it. You look at any group that's put together, and caring about the person next to you more than yourself makes you unstoppable. Like,
absolutely.
Even from a crew mentality, it is so important. If you know that everybody that stands in a circle is going to take care of you, I'm going to take care of that person. I'm going to make sure he's fed and watered before I do, and we stand in a circle and we all do this, you have the best team on the face of the planet. And
it starts at the top.
Yep, it truly does.
Anybody can start it, but it really starts at the top. And you know, people talk about how they're, you know, this department, that department doesn't have the culture. Well, it starts on your crew. You can start it on your crew. You know what I mean? Your little station, your little area, you can start it and you can have it. And I'll tell you right now, it grows. Once people start seeing that, it grows. It may not be something that's talked about. It may not be something that's advertised, but it happens.
Leadership in the fire service is non-negotiable. So like what I mean by that is if you're in a position to lead, you will lead these people in one direction or the other.
Yep.
You can have negative or you can have positive, but you're going to bring them somewhere. Like culture and all these other things that are pop phrases that we bring up all the time are great, but it's an acceptance of input. If you want a better culture, expect higher. You know, raise your expectations of your human beings and of yourself, more importantly, and then walk the walk. Like, it's not as convoluted and mismanaged as you think, but sometimes we forget that leadership can be negative, right? So if we create this culture like I did, where we're not going to talk about it ever, I'm sure there's some negative impact from that.
Obviously, you've talked about kind of how you went through all this, and now you've come out the other side. And, you know, we talk about a lot on here. It's not necessarily the post-traumatic stress. It's a post-traumatic growth afterwards, which is a huge thing. We talk about it's not a life sentence. You can get through it, and it actually makes you stronger on the other side. Kind of talk about what does post-traumatic growth kind of mean to you, and in your own journey, how have you noticed it?
Oh, man, I could talk about that for a long time because this is one of the huge things that probably made me get through this. And I would have got through it. I don't mean that like in a weird way, but like I think I'm in a better place now rather than where I was. And post-traumatic growth is a funny thing, right? Like we print it on this piece of paper and we give you these 5 domains and these 8 things that you do, and we make pretty colors on them and have it crap out the other side, and you're supposed to just be better. And you have one thing happen and we think that it does it. I think that's one of the biggest things that we mistake in the fire service and about trauma. We sit there and we go, okay, trauma, you have to have this call that creates this thing, and then there's a response, and then you grow, and then you're good. Like your life is the same thing, right? Like, so like these things happen rhythmically and partially and imperfectly through a career. The strange thing for me was I had never heard of post-traumatic growth. I never thought about trauma. I heard about PTSD, and I wasn't in the military, so I couldn't have that. You know, and I'm saying that deliberately, like that was the mindset. Like there was never this thing. The call didn't get me this time. Like the call went really well. I was proud of what we did that day. So I can't have PTSD. I can't have any of these things. So you can't have growth unless you have trauma, right? So the weird thing about this was, though, it was when that 30-day period went up, or 35 or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact numbers right now. When that light bulb turned back on, when that light switch went on, it was exponentially brighter than it was before. And I don't mean intelligently, because obviously that's not the case, right? I'm still negative. I'm still working on that positivity part that's in post-traumatic growth. But I kind of looked at 20 years of service and 20 years of my life and 20 years of blaming other people for the positions that I stood in. And it was clear that none of that stuff was completely true, right? So like post-traumatic growth for me was like a lot of truthfulness about what got me to the position I was. Failed relationships, failed stuff, you know, not making it to where I wanted to be. And I can actually look at different points in my career, like being promoted or becoming the course manager of a fire academy, or like respected amongst your peers and those things. And those were points in post-traumatic growth from cumulative stress, right? Like, so like I had 20 years of service in very busy areas. Like I worked BMS in Flint for 10 years. On top of this, every day that I had off, I filled with more of this, right? It was what I was good at. And I paid less attention to my actual life. And then I wondered why this failed. We use the word resilience all the time. I mean, they built a resilience center in Oxford. And I think one of the most profound things that somebody told me, and this psychologist looked at me and she goes, you know what resilience is a synonym for, right? And I said, I just thought it was a cool word that everybody likes to put on sides of buildings. After a shooting, we say that you're resilient. Balance. And when you really write it down, and I mean actually take it and write it down, right? Like if I were to ask you, like, what are the three most important people in your life, and you'd write these down, and I'm stealing this from another speaker, but you write these down, okay, then assign time to them. Tell me truthfully what you're actually doing to balance your life with that. And I just gave you a resume in the beginning of this, right? Like I said, like, oh, this is the things that I do. What if we rechange that? Well, this is the way that I ignore my family. Right? Like, this is the way that I put 85% of my time into something other than what I will tell you verbally is the most important thing in the world to me. And it was just like turning the lights on when you've been sitting in the dark for a while. It was painful. My eyes hurt. I didn't like it. It was uncomfortable. Coming to truth with some of the things that you've done in your life, that's why you tucked it in the back. You don't like it. But it made a lot of those things because it's ownership, right? And ownership sucks. Like, that's why people make up different stories, right? Because owning your own space is very, very difficult. So that's really what post-traumatic growth was to me, was kind of seeing things for the truth of where they were. Because if you don't know where you were, you can't move forward, right? So, and then kind of changing outlooks, right? So I'm sitting here having a conversation with you. I teach mental health classes. Like I sit at these conferences and have conversations with people. We sit around the table and talk about things that aren't hammers and nails. It doesn't make me weak. I'm not sitting here crying on your shoulder.
No.
Still a guy grabbing a nozzle and going in, or treating the bad patient.
It feels like you addressing the fact that you were avoiding or not addressing certain things, and now doing it is the strength. It's not that you're like, I'm better now. No, the strength comes from the willingness to move forward while recognizing the realities and acceptance.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like it's therapeutic, right? Like, so part of this is my own. I have to recognize it as that, and it took me a while of even doing this to kind of figure that out. Like, at first I was like, oh, I'm going to do, like, it's that constant, I'm going to do it for somebody else, right? Like, and then I was like,
oh, they need me to teach this.
Yeah. They need me to teach it. Now
Yes.
there's a mirror, and I don't turn that around. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, let's just make sure that we don't have.
I don't
those
sit in the
around.
audience. I sit at the front and tell everybody about the tactic. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah,
I understand.
I'm the educator. What are you talking about? I have to be up front, So, I mean, post-traumatic growth looks different, but the thing that I struggled with at first, you could have showed me post-traumatic growth, and I'd been like, just the same way that I did with like PTSD or trauma or anything. I don't have it. I didn't get it on me. There's no stain in a pair of pants from it, right? Like, it doesn't exist. And then furthermore, I would have accepted that it was like this finite thing, right? It's a rhythm. It's a lifetime. It's cumulative buckets. You could have things in your backpack full of garbage before you come into the fire service. There could be, it doesn't have to, there's different types of stress. And just because like right now, I think that I've gotten to like all these points, right? Like, of post-traumatic growth. I'm sure I haven't. I'll figure out something else that looks different at some point where I'll grow, right? Like, it's just human growth. If you're lucky, you do this without trauma, right? Like, some people magically actually just go through their life and become better human beings and better at what they're doing and better in life just by experience. And it doesn't always have to be negative, but we're consummate negative people in the fire service. So we got to get hit. I'm one of those guys that I have to hit my thumb with a hammer twice a year to make sure it still hurts. Doesn't matter how many years I do it. So I'm sure I'll be back in this boat, but like, that's a personality problem, right?
Yeah. Well, we're also the first responder community isn't exactly around happy, fuzzy stories all day. So it's easy to look at the world a certain way through the lens of which we interact with our communities.
Well, you brought up a great point there. One of the things that we have to do, we have to start filling other boxes, right? Like, so if we took any of our careers and we filled a happy box, let's be honest, there's nothing great. I will say this 100% truthfully. My crew and I would probably all agree on this. Sitting in the back of an ambulance holding grandma's hand is a wonderful thing, right? Like, that's fantastic. These calls that maybe they don't need an ambulance, maybe they do, whatever. Getting to be there for somebody is a fantastic thing if you let it be, right? So if we actually change our viewpoint in the conversation, when people are sitting around the table like, oh, that's BS, why are we taking this person? Man, that was great. You see her smile? We made her feel better. She was comfortable. That's what we're here to do. It allows us to start filling the other box. And it brings, like, even the very beginning of this conversation, it's very hard for people, and I get it, some people to have me sit there and tell them that that was a good day. That's a hard conversation, right? Like, people don't, the heck is wrong with you? You know what I mean? And I got to positively affect a human's life. You know what I mean? And I gained a friend out of it, a friend that's just an amazing human being, right? I got closer to some of my crew. I'm just standing in a different position. It's the same day. I'm just choosing to look at it in a different way. And maybe that's protected. Maybe that's me protecting myself. I don't know, but I also don't care. I'm happy about it, right? So I'm not saying that I'm happy that occurred, but I didn't do it. Neither did my crew. And they did our jobs. We signed up to do a thing, and they did an amazing job. Amazing people did amazing things that day, right? And a lot of people lived that day, right? And every other day of our career. There's a lot of people that we have successfully delivered to the ED. And sometimes we need to look at the numbers, and those numbers really outweigh the negative, and to stand somewhere else.
Some powerful stuff, man. If you could leave one message for other first responders or departments listening today, what would that be?
If you think that it's not going to happen to you, like that these things aren't going to occur, you're wrong, right? So training is still in the forefront of everything, but mental health and being there for your crew, and we touched on this, right? If you want an effective crew, an effective career, and people that have happy lives, looking into this and actually doing the hard work up front, we were really lucky. We had some command staff people in place that unfortunately had some very bad things happen in their career, so they understood where to move from it. But you have to integrate some of these conversations. You have to make it okay to have these things. You have to have peer support. If you're spending, I'll leave you with this. Like if we're going to sit there and spend 20 hours in Fire Academy going over your SCBA in the first 2 weeks, I've been in the fire service, knock on wood, for 23 years, and I've only had one SCBA failure, and it was not in a fire. I've watched the people around me all get divorced, become alcoholics, have mental health problems and breakdowns. Maybe we start looking at some of the stuff that's important and start prioritizing your people's actual lives. Because if they're good there, they're going to be good here too, right? Like resilience is balance. And if we don't start creating environments where our employees, where our crews, where our people can feel safe to be balanced, they're going to dump everything into this job because they love it, and it really is that magical. But they're going to lose the other side of it. And is that really taking care of people? And I don't think it is.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. That's awesome.
So,
yeah. Thank you very much for your honesty, your openness today, man. Yeah, you gave everybody a lot to think about, so thank you.
Thanks a bunch for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.